Let me tell you something real, something raw. Most people, 95% of them, fail in life, and not because they weren't smart enough, talented enough, or given the right opportunities. No, ship. They fail because they never demanded more from themselves. They fail because they settle, because they drift, because they wait for permission to live a life they were born to claim. Most people walk through life without a clear vision. They wake up, go to work, scroll through their phones, go to sleep, and repeat. But they never take the time to ask, what do I really want? Not what society told them, not what their parents expected. I'm talking about a fire in your gut, heart-pounding, soul-level vision, the kind that pulls you out of bed in the morning. Without that clarity, people drift. They survive, not thrive. They move, but they don't go anywhere. And even when they get a glimpse of that dream, fear comes crashing in. Fear of failing, fear of looking stupid, fear of stepping out and not knowing what comes next. So they retreat, they hesitate. But here's the truth, fear kills more dreams than failure ever will. Failure at least teaches you something. Fear just leaves you empty-handed. Now let's be honest, most people want the result, but they don't want the process. They say they want to change, but they're not willing to get uncomfortable. Growth doesn't come in the comfort zone. Progress doesn't come when you're cozy. It comes when you're tired, uncertain, and still show up. That's where the edge is. That's where transformation lives. And don't tell me you're reading books and watching motivational videos if you're not applying anything. That's not growth, that's entertainment. Knowledge means nothing without execution. You've got to be relentless about action. Consistent, boring, unsexy action. That's where the 5% live. Where others gave up, they got started. Another big reason people fail. Relationship. They're hanging around the wrong people. You show me your circle, I'll show you your future. Are they pushing you forward or pulling you down? Are they challenging you to level up? Or are they validating your excuses? Because energy is contagious, and most people catch mediocrity from the people closest to them. Then there's this. People let their emotions run their life. They get a little uncomfortable, a little tired, and suddenly it's, I'll do it tomorrow. Listen to me. You are not your emotions. Your feelings don't get a vote in your future unless you let them. Discipline is doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. And here's the kicker. People quit too soon. Instant results. They plant a seed and dig it up 2 days later wondering why it hasn't bloomed. This isn't microwave success. This is brick by brick, day by day work. Everyone wants the glory. Very few are willing to endure the grind. But the biggest failure of all, the victim mindset. The idea that life is happening to you, not for you. That someone else is to blame. The boss, the system, the government, the market, the weather. Anything but themselves. That mentality keeps you powerless. The 5%. Relationship. They don't waste a second pointing fingers. They take radical ownership. They say, how can I? So if you're wondering why 95% fail, it's simple. They choose easy over meaningful, comfort over courage, and excuses over execution. But you don't have to be one of them. You can decide right now to step into the 5%. Not when it's convenient. Now, because your future doesn't respond to your feelings. It responds to your decisions. Choose power. Choose purpose. Choose to rise. The rest of your life is waiting for you to step up. Thank you. Fear of failure is one of the most powerful forces holding people back. And it's destroying more dreams than any actual setback ever could. People aren't failing because they're incapable. They're failing because they're afraid to even start. They let the fear of what if paralyze them before they take the first step. What if I mess up? What if people laugh at me? What if I lose money? What if I'm not good enough? These questions play on repeat in their minds like a broken record, and instead of breaking through, they break down. Fear convinces people to play small, to hide behind routines, to stay in environments that drain them instead of challenge them. It convinces them that staying safe is better than trying and falling short. But the truth is this. Failure isn't the enemy, it's the foundation. It's the price of greatness. Every person who ever achieved anything extraordinary has failed more times than most people have even tried. The only difference is they didn't let failure define them, they let it refine them. But the 95%, they take one punch and they quit. They interpret rejection as a signal to stop instead of feedback to grow. They avoid risk, but in doing so, they guarantee regret. They'd rather stay comfortable in a life they don't love than risk looking foolish in the pursuit of something extraordinary. Fear doesn't disappear. You don't get rid of it by thinking positive thoughts or waiting for the perfect moment. That's a myth. You beat fear by moving through it. By acting even when your hands are shaking and your stomach is in knots. Action kills fear. The moment you take a step, fear loses its grip. But the longer you wait, the more it grows. It feeds on hesitation. That's why most people never become who they were meant to be. Not because they couldn't, but because they wouldn't act while afraid. Failure isn't what holds people back. It's the idea of failure. It's the illusion that making a mistake means you're broken or worthless. But failure is proof you're in the game. It's the scar tissue of someone who dared to try. People don't remember the ones who played it safe. They remember the ones who fell, got up, and kept going. But to be remembered, you first have to risk being seen, you have to risk falling, and most people, they'd rather stay invisible. If you want to rise, you have to decide that your purpose is bigger than your fear, that your dream is worth the pain, that your future deserves the risk. Because the people who break through aren't fearless, they're just committed. They feel the fear, and they move anyway. And that's the difference. That's what separates the top 5% from the rest. Not talent, not luck, just one decision: I'm not letting fear run my life. And when you make that decision, when you commit fully, completely, without looking back, that's when your life begins to change. Not when it's easy, not when you're ready. But the moment you decide that fear will no longer be your master, that moment can be now. Most people fail in life because they choose comfort over growth. It sounds simple, but this one choice, repeated over and over again, determines who rises and who stays stuck. Growth is uncomfortable. It demands more of you. It asks you to step into unfamiliar territory, to face your weaknesses, to confront the truth about where you are and what you've been avoiding. And that terrifies people. So instead of pushing forward, they settle for what's easy. They settle for routines, for habits that keep them small, for environments that don't challenge them. They stay in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, and patterns that slowly suffocate their potential, all because it's familiar. And the mind loves familiar, even if it's killing your spirit. See, comfort is seductive. It tells you you're okay. It tells you to relax, that you'll start tomorrow, that you deserve a break. And while comfort may feel good in the moment, it robs you in the long run. Because while you're busy playing it safe, someone else out there is getting uncomfortable. Someone else is waking up early, doing the work, having the hard conversations, building the discipline, making the sacrifices. And in 5 years, the difference won't be subtle, it'll be massive. That's the price of choosing comfort. It doesn't cost you today, but it costs you everything over time. Growth demands that you stretch beyond what's easy. It demands pain, sweat, humility, failure. It demands that you outgrow the person you were yesterday. But most people are more committed to who they've been than who they could become. They cling to their identity, their habits, their story, because rewriting that story takes courage. And that's why they stay stuck, because it's easier to say, this is just who I am, than to face the work required to change. What people don't realize is that the pain of growth is temporary, but the pain of staying the same lasts forever. Growth might hurt in the moment, but stagnation eats away at your soul. You start to feel restless, bitter, regretful. You look back and realize years have passed and nothing changed because you didn't change. And all along, you told yourself you were just being practical or patient or waiting for the right time. But the truth, you were just comfortable. The people who win, the 5%, they choose growth over and over again, even when it's hard. They lean into the discomfort. They use it as fuel. They understand that discomfort is the price of transformation. They don't want the easy road, they want the real one. Because they know that the version of themselves they're chasing, that person doesn't live in comfort. That version lives on the edge, out where it's uncertain, out where it's scary, out where it's real. So if you're wondering why 95% of people never make it, why they talk big but live small, it's because they've built a life around staying comfortable instead of chasing what sets their soul on fire. They've trained themselves to avoid the very thing that would change them. But if you want to rise, if you want to break out, if you want to be different, you've got to want growth more than you want comfort. You've got to be willing to get uncomfortable every single day. Because comfort might give you a quiet life, but only growth will give you a meaningful one. Most people fail not because they lack intelligence, talent, or even opportunity. They fail because they don't take consistent action. That's it. That's the dividing line between those who live an extraordinary life and those who just get by. Everyone wants the reward, but almost no one wants to repeat the same hard things every single day when the results aren't instant. They get excited at the beginning. Motivation is high. They make plans, they set goals, they talk big. But when the initial energy fades, they fall off. They stop showing up because they were relying on a burst of inspiration, not a long-term commitment. The truth is, success isn't sexy. It's not fireworks and applause. It's repetition, discipline, and doing the boring, uncomfortable things over and over again without immediate results. Consistency is the grind. It's waking up when no one's watching. It's doing the work when it's inconvenient. It's choosing to act when every part of you wants to quit. And most people simply don't have the mental muscle for that. They're addicted to results, not the process. They want a payoff without the patience. So they try something for a week, maybe a month, and when they don't see massive progress, they call it a failure and move on to the next thing. But the 5%, they know better. They understand that consistency compounds. They know that small actions repeated daily create massive shifts over time. They don't need instant gratification because they're playing the long game. They're committed, not just interested. The average person underestimates how much their daily habits shape their entire life. They think missing one workout, one meeting, 1 hour of focused work doesn't matter. But it does. Because it's not about one day. It's about who you're becoming. Every time you skip what you said you do, you reinforce a belief that you can't trust yourself. And when you do that long enough, you stop setting goals at all. You stop dreaming. You accept a watered-down version of life, all because you never follow through. That's the tragedy of inconsistency. It doesn't just kill goals, it kills self-belief. And here's the part that stings: most people are consistent at the wrong things. They're consistent at procrastinating, consistent at doubting themselves, consistent at starting and quitting. So the results they're living with right now, that's not random. That's the outcome of consistent behavior, just not the kind that moves them forward. If you want to rise, if you want to break free from the 95%, you have to make consistency non-negotiable. It has to become part of your identity. I want to write, but I am a writer who writes every day. Not I'll try to get fit, but I'm the kind of person who trains no matter what. That shift from effort to identity is what locks in consistency. Because when it's who you are, you don't need motivation. You don't need perfect conditions. You just do the work. That's the difference. That's the edge. The people who win, they're not the most talented. They're just the ones who kept going when everyone else got bored, distracted, or discouraged. They knew that consistent action, even when it felt small or pointless, was stacking a future no one else could see yet. And now they're living the life everyone else dreams of, but wasn't willing to earn. One of the most overlooked reasons why 95% of people fail in life is because they surround themselves with the wrong people. It's not dramatic, it's not flashy, but it's absolutely deadly. The people around you shape your mindset, your beliefs, your standards, even your sense of what's possible. And if you're constantly around people who think small, act lazy, or complain more than they create, you start absorbing that energy like a sponge. It becomes your new normal. You stop reaching higher because no one around you is pushing you to. You stop growing because no one around you is growing. And before you realize it, you've settled into a life that doesn't challenge or excite you, simply because everyone around you did the same. People fail because they don't protect their environment. They stay close to friends they've outgrown because it's familiar. They tolerate negativity because they don't want to seem arrogant. They keep people in their lives out of history, not alignment. But what they don't realize is that proximity is power. Who you spend your time with isn't just a lifestyle choice. It's a life-determining factor. If you're surrounded by people who gossip, complain, or always have an excuse for why things don't work out, it's only a matter of time before you start doing the same. That's how failure creeps in. Not through one huge mistake, but through constant exposure to small-minded thinking. You become like the people you spend the most time with, whether you admit it or not. Their habits become your habits. Their language becomes your language. Their limitations become your limitations. And most people don't even realize it's happening. They think they're making their own choices, but they're really just adapting to the standards of their environment. If you're trying to fly, but you're surrounded by people who live with their feet planted firmly on the ground, don't be surprised when your wings don't work. Success demands that you audit your circle, not from a place of ego, but from a place of urgency. You have to ask yourself, do the people around me inspire me or drain me? Do they hold me accountable or enable my excuses? Do they expand my vision or constantly shrink it? If the answer isn't crystal clear, you already know the truth. You're not growing because your environment doesn't support growth. It rewards staying the same. This is why the 5% rise. They surround themselves with people who are going somewhere. They seek out mentors, communities, friends who think bigger, aim higher, and refuse to settle. They understand that being the smartest or most ambitious person in the room might feel good temporarily, but it's a trap. Growth happens when you're around people who stretch you, who challenge your ideas, who won't let you slack off or shrink back. And that kind of environment, it doesn't happen by accident. You have to build it. You have to be intentional. You have to say no to invitations that pull you off track. You have to distance yourself from people who make mediocrity feel acceptable. You have to stop apologizing for wanting more. Because wanting more doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you awake. And when you're awake, you realize the brutal truth: not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. If they're not building you, they're breaking you. Maybe not dramatically, maybe not all at once, but little by little, just enough to keep you from your potential. So if you're serious about breaking out of the 95%, take a long, hard look at who's around you, because you can't climb if you're tied to people who are determined to stay stuck. You can't evolve while clinging to people who are addicted to comfort. And you can't win if your environment is teaching you how to lose. The people around you are either your greatest asset or your greatest liability. Choose wisely. Your future depends on it. Most people fail in life because they lack emotional discipline. They let their feelings dictate their actions, their moods control their behavior, and their impulses sabotage their progress. It's not that they don't have goals. It's not that they don't want success. It's that they haven't learned how to manage the emotional storms that come with the journey. They get excited, they start strong, They make promises to themselves, but the moment they feel tired, discouraged, overwhelmed, or afraid, they back down. They start negotiating with their goals. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Maybe this just isn't for me. Maybe I'm not ready. And just like that, they let a temporary emotion create a permanent outcome. They stop showing up not because they're incapable, but because they're inconsistent. And inconsistency is always a symptom of weak emotional control. Life will test you. It will punch you in the gut. It will throw things at you that you didn't ask for and didn't expect. And in those moments, most people break. Not because of the event itself, but because of how they emotionally respond to it. They get caught in anxiety. They spiral in doubt. They drown in frustration. They make decisions based on how they feel in the moment, instead of staying grounded in the long-term vision. But you cannot build a powerful life if your emotions are running the show. You can't win if every mood swing becomes a reason to pause, quit, or pivot. The people who lose are the ones who never train their emotions, they train their excuses. Emotional discipline is the ability to keep moving forward. Relationship, even when everything inside you is screaming to stop, it's doing the hard thing, not because you feel like it, but because it's what your future demands. It's learning to feel fear, but not follow it. To feel anger, but not let it turn into destruction. To feel sadness, but still get up and do what has to be done. Most people don't fail because they hit a wall. They fail because they feel something uncomfortable at the wall, and they give that feeling too much power. Real power is when you become emotionally unshakable, not cold, not numb, but strong. You still feel everything, but you no longer let those feelings dictate your actions. That's when things change. That's when your habits become consistent, your focus sharpens, and your resilience becomes unstoppable. Because now, you're no longer at the mercy of how you feel, you're driven by who you've decided to become. The 95% let emotions lead. They feel tired and they rest. They feel frustrated and they lash out. They feel doubt and they abandon their goals. But the 5%, they've trained themselves to master those moments. They feel the same emotions, we all do. But they've built the mental discipline to stay calm, focused, and intentional even in chaos. That's not natural, it's trained. And it's rare. That's why most people will never experience their full potential. They keep waiting to feel ready, not realizing that success belongs to those who show up regardless of how they feel. You want to break out of the 95%, then you need to become emotionally disciplined. Don't react, respond. Don't follow your emotions, lead them. Don't let temporary discomfort sabotage your permanent growth, because the truth is your emotions are not reality. They're just signals. And when you learn how to hear them without obeying them, you become unstoppable. You stop quitting. You stop crashing. You stop giving your power away to every fleeting thought and mood that passes through your mind. You start moving with clarity, with conviction, and with the kind of calm intensity that turns dreams into reality. That's the standard. That's the mindset. That's what separates those who almost made it from those who actually do. Most people fail in life because they live with a short-term mindset. They want results right now. They want success fast. They chase the feeling of achievement without respecting the process it actually takes to achieve anything meaningful. And when things don't happen quickly, when the results don't show up on their timeline, they quit. They say it wasn't meant to be. They say it didn't work. But the truth is, they didn't stay in the game long enough. They were looking for speed, not sustainability. They didn't plant roots. They scattered seeds and gave up when the harvest didn't come overnight. A short-term mindset convinces people that if they don't get immediate feedback or instant rewards, they're doing something wrong. It causes them to abandon great paths too early and settle for easy wins that lead nowhere in the long run. The reality is that anything truly great takes time, mastery, legacy, impact, freedom. It all requires patience and long-term commitment. But the 95% are wired for dopamine, not discipline. They want the thrill of progress without enduring the boring consistency it demands. They chase shortcuts, hacks, and quick fixes, thinking there's some secret formula to bypass the hard work. There isn't. The people who rise, who build something that lasts, who become legends in their fields, those people are playing the long game. They're not focused on how fast they can get there. They're focused on how strong they can become while getting there. And that mindset makes all the difference. Short-term thinkers avoid discomfort because they can't see past it. They treat failure like a stop sign instead of a stepping stone. They give up when they hit resistance because they expect smooth roads. But long-term thinkers, they expect resistance. They welcome it. Because they understand that pressure creates strength, and setbacks are part of the strategy. They know that you don't build something valuable in a few days or weeks. You build it over years of showing up, adjusting, learning, and evolving. That's why they outlast everyone else. Not because they're better, but because they're thinking bigger, deeper, longer. When you have a short-term mindset, you live for the next high, the next like, the next opportunity that feels exciting for a moment. But that kind of life burns out fast because the moment it gets hard or boring or slow, you start looking for something new. Relationship, you stay in a cycle of starting and quitting, starting and quitting. You never stay long enough to see what you're really capable of. And that's the greatest loss of all, never meeting the version of you that only long-term commitment could unlock. People who win big think in decades, not days. They ask, what can I build that will matter 10 years from now? Who can I become if I keep doing the right thing over and over again? Even when no one notices. That kind of vision creates unstoppable momentum. Because when your mind is rooted in the long game, you don't get shaken by temporary losses. You don't get discouraged by slow growth. You see it all as part of the plan. That's the mindset that separates the top 5% from everyone else. So if you're tired of starting over, if you're tired of getting stuck, maybe it's time to stop asking, how fast can I get there? And start asking, how far can I go if I refuse to quit? That's the shift. That's the unlock. Play the long game and everything changes. Most people fail in life because they live trapped in a victim mentality. Relationship, they go through life believing things are happening to them instead of realizing that things are happening because of them. They point fingers, they blame their parents, their past, their boss, the government, the economy, the weather, bad luck, anything that lets them off the hook for where they are and what they haven't done. It's easier that way. It's easier to believe that life is unfair than to accept the brutal truth that their own choices, their own habits, their own mindset have played the biggest role in their failure. Victim mentality is seductive because it offers comfort. It allows people to stay exactly where they are without guilt, because it convinces them that their circumstances are beyond their control. But what it doesn't offer is power, and that's the trade: temporary comfort in exchange for long-term weakness. When you live with a victim mindset, every challenge becomes a personal attack. Every setback becomes a reason to quit. Every failure becomes further proof that the world is against you. People in this state don't look for solutions, they look for someone to blame. They don't take ownership, they wait to be rescued. They talk about what should have happened, what could have happened, how someone else messed it all up. But while they're stuck in that loop of blame and excuses, the clock is still ticking. Life is moving forward without them. And the worst part, they don't even see how much control they've given away. The people who win in life, truly win, are the ones who take absolute responsibility for everything. Even the stuff that's not their fault. Because they understand something that 95% never learn: fault and responsibility are not the same thing. Something can happen that's not your fault, but how you respond, that's always on you. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control what you do next. And the second you take ownership of your life, your results, your mindset, your habits, that's the second you take your power back. But most people won't do that, because taking responsibility means looking in the mirror. It means admitting that they've wasted time, missed opportunities, and stayed stuck not because of someone else, but because of their own inaction. That's a hard pill to swallow. It hurts, it stings. But that sting, that's where the growth begins. The victim blames, the leader reflects, and in that reflection comes clarity, direction, and most importantly, change. People stuck in a victim mentality wait for the perfect conditions before they act. They tell themselves, I'll do it when things calm down, or I'll start when I get support, or I can't succeed until this changes. They put their future on hold, waiting for circumstances to shift. But circumstances don't change until you do. You have to be the catalyst. You have to be the one who draws the line and says, no more waiting, no more blaming, no more excuses. It's on me now. That moment of decision, that's when everything begins to shift. The people who rise, the 5%, they're not victims. They've been through pain, they've been through struggle, but they don't camp out in it. They don't let it define them. They use it, they learn from it. They let it sharpen them instead of soften them. That's the difference. That's the mindset. That's what turns failure into fuel. They take ownership not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. And that ownership becomes the foundation of their success. So if you want to stop failing, stop blaming, take up your power, stand up and own every part of your life, the good, the bad, relationship, the painful, the disappointing, and then make a choice. What are you going to do about it? Because that question, that's where your story changes. So here's the truth. The reason 95% of people fail in life isn't because they aren't talented, lucky, or smart enough. It's because they never take full control of their mindset, their habits, their decisions, and their environment. They let fear stop them. They choose comfort over growth. They wait for motivation instead of building discipline. They surround themselves with people who hold them back. They let emotions lead, think only short term, and worst of all, they blame everything but themselves. But the 5%, they make a different choice. They take responsibility. They act with intention. They stay consistent when it's boring, focused when it's hard, and committed when everyone else walks away. They're not superhuman, they're just relentless. And the truth is, every single person, including you, has the power to join that 5%. Not someday, not when things are perfect, but now. Because success doesn't come to the most talented, it comes to the most committed. So if you're tired of failing, tired of waiting, tired of being average, Then it's time to make the decision that changes everything. Stop living like the 95% and start acting like the 5%. Your future is waiting. The only question is, are you ready to claim it?